Hello, everyone. Winter's finding us here in western Pennsylvania, and I suspect in many other places where you all may be. But though it is cold, the sun is out today, and the snow has not arrived. All good, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, it is time to have some poems about Christmas, or at least the run-up to Christmas. I've chosen 3 poems that you probably won't hear much, although one of them at least was a favorite for schools in those long ago mid-20th century days when I was there. So let's start with that one. It's called, it's by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, as you might have guessed, and it's called Christmas Bells. It's been put to music, and I think we've all heard that too. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then, from each black accursed mouth, the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent and made forlorn the households born of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Well, you can probably guess that poem was written during the time of the Civil War. And in some ways, it is still pretty contemporary, isn't it? I mean, we have a lot of anger still. So peace and goodwill are often in short supply. I hope this Christmas season will bring those good attitudes to the fore. The human race does not change very rapidly, does it? I don't think so. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, of course, was one of the most famous men of his day. Today's poets are unlike that. There aren't any of them as famous or as well paid, I suspect, as Henry Longfellow was in his day. He was able to make a good living writing poetry. He started out as a professor at a couple of schools in New England, the second one being Harvard, but he gave up that job for his poetry writing. Longfellow had a lot of personal problems. He lost both of his wives under the saddest possible circumstances. One within a year of their marriage, and the other one after they had been married for many years and had 5 children. She was sealing an envelope with wax, which was common in those days, and she had a candle in her hand, and it got knocked off the table, and set her dress on fire, and of course, it burned her up. Longfellow himself heard her screams and came and did everything he could to rescue her, but that was a sad ending. He never married again. He carried on with his family, as we all must do at times, and he eventually started writing poetry again, and his life went on. Here's another poem by a very famous poet in the 20th century, and we all know who Robert Frost is, and this poem is very Frostian, I would say. But it's not one that you hear read or will read very often. I call it a good poem for a capitalist Christmas. You'll understand why as we get into it here. The poem was published in 1916 when Frost was 42 years old and had been living on a Vermont farmstead. So here is a Christmas circular letter, and he actually did send this around to his friends one Christmas. The city had withdrawn itself and left at last the country to the country, when between whirls of snow not come to lie, and whirls of foliage not yet laid, there drove a stranger to our yard, who looked the city, yet did in country fashion, in that he sat and waited till he drew us out, a-buttoning our coats to ask him who he was. He proved to be the city come again, to look for something it had left behind and could not do without, and keep its Christmas. He asked if I would sell my Christmas trees, my woods, the young fir balsams, like a place where houses all are churches and have spires. I hadn't thought of them as Christmas trees. I doubt if I was tempted for a moment to sell them off their feet, to go in cars and leave the slope behind the house all bare, where the sun shines now no warmer than the moon. I'd hate to have them know it if I was. Yet more, I'd hate to hold my trees except as others hold theirs or refuse for them beyond the time of profitable growth. The trial by market everything must come to. I dallied so much with the thought of selling. Then, whether from mistaken courtesy and fear of seeming short of speech, or whether from hope of hearing good of what was mine, I said, there aren't enough to be worthwhile. I could soon tell how many they would cut. You let me look them over, he said. So I said, you could look, but don't expect I'm going to let you have them. Pasture they spring in, some in clumps too close that lop each other of boughs, but not a few quite solitary and having equal boughs all round and round. The latter he nodded yes to, or paused to say beneath some lovelier one, with a buyer's moderation, that would do. I thought so too, but wasn't there to say so. We climbed the pasture on the south, crossed over, and came down on the north. He said, 1,000 Christmas trees. At what a piece? He felt some need of softening that to me. 1,000 trees would come to $30. Then I was certain I had never meant to let him have them. Never show surprise, but $30 seemed so small beside the extent of pasture I should strip. 3 cents, for that was all they figured out apiece. 3 cents, so small, beside the dollar friends I should be writing to within the hour would pay in cities for good trees like those. Regular vestry trees, whole Sunday schools could hang enough on to pick off enough. 1,000 Christmas trees I didn't know I had, worth 3 cents more to give away than sell, as may be shown by a simple calculation. Too bad I couldn't lay one in a letter. I can't help wishing I could send you one, in wishing you herewith a Merry Christmas. So that was his rather lengthy Christmas card to his friends one year, the year 1916. I thought that was quite interesting. This is so typical of Frost. He certainly was a capitalist himself and sold things from his farm regularly. But $30 for 1,000 trees seemed to him then, as it does to us now, a ridiculously low price. But we mustn't forget that $1 was worth a lot more then than now. I did some checking and found that a 1916 dollar would be worth $25.29 today. So Frost was being offered $758.75 for 1,000 of his trees. That would be in 2021 buying power, of course, but still. By the way, the inflation rate in 1916 was between 8% and 12%, depending on which source you look at. So, Frost had good reason not to sell his trees back then, that's for sure. They could be worth quite a bit more the next year, but he doesn't tell us that. Finally, I want to read another poem for you, and this is a Christmas season poem by a black woman poet who is a graduate of Kenyon College, where one of our best American poets had his career, and that is one you've heard from before. His name is John Crowe Ransom, the late John Crowe Ransom. This poem is called The Black Santa, and it's written by Alison Joseph. It was written in 2003, and it was published in one of her several books of poetry, which she has published. She teaches in a college. I can't remember exactly which one, but she's done quite a good job, I think, on this poem. And it's a memoriam from her own childhood. I remember sitting on his bony lap, fake beard slumping off his face, his breath reeking sweetly of alcohol, a scent I didn't yet know at age 5. And I didn't know that Santa was supposed to be fat, white, merry, not shaky and thin like this department store Santa who listened as I reeled off that year's list. A child's oven I'd burn my fingers on, a mini record player of gaudy plastic I'd drag from room to room by its precarious orange handle, an Etch-a-Sketch I'd ruin by twisting its dials too hard. My requests as solemn as a prayer, fervid, fueled by too many hours of television, too many commercials filled with noisy children, elated by the latest game or toy. I bet none of them ever sat on the lap of a Santa who didn't ho, ho, ho in jolly mirth, whose sunken red eyes peered out from under his oversized wig and red velveteen cap, his teeth yellow, his long fingers tinged with yellow. I did not find it strange to call this man Santa, to whisper my childish whispers into his ear, to pull on his sleeve to let him know I really deserved all that I'd asked for. I posed for an instant photo with him, a woolen cap over my crooked braids, mittens sewn to my coat sleeves. No one could have convinced me this Santa couldn't slide down any chimney, though his belly didn't fill his suit, and his hands trembled just a bit as he lifted me from his lap. No one could have told me that a pink-cheeked, pale-skinned Santa was the only Santa to worship, to beg for toys and candy. I wouldn't have believed them. Who'd tell me Santa couldn't look like me? Who'd tell me that? Brown eyes, face, and skin. This poem is worth thinking about. It's children, as it comes out in this poem, are thinking of now. They don't really care what color Santa is. We could all learn a lot from that. That's all for today. I wouldn't be surprised if I had more Christmas poetry between now and December 25th. Would you? Goodbye now and have a good week ahead.